Welcome to MotivationAddict.com with Julie Saillant. This is where you will find inspiring stories on how to motivate yourself and gain momentum towards success, turning fear into confidence, and how to find divine flow, allowing you to crush your goals. Thank you for being here. And now, let's tune in to today's show.
Welcome, everyone, to Motivation Addict. I am thrilled that you are here today. I have Lindsey Rains as my guest today. She is an equestrian blogger and creator of Altamira Horsemanship, and that's a blog about foundational principles of horsemanship. She focuses on communication between horse and rider and kind training tactics. She resides in Liberty Lake, Washington with her husband, and when she's not blogging, she loves to knit and explore new coffee shops. So she's an amazing horsewoman. I had a wonderful time talking with her. Welcome to the show, Lindsey. Hey everyone, Julie Saillant from Motivation Addict. I am super excited today, super excited because I have Lindsey Rains with me. She is an equestrian blogger. She has an awesome website that I went on. We've had a nice conversation before we actually jumped on the Zoom, and we have a lot in common. So welcome to the show. Thank you for being here, Lindsey.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited.
I'm so excited to talk to you. We got lots to chat about. So
yes.
Why don't you tell us a little bit about Altamira Horsemanship? That's the name of your company and what you do with horses?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. So I can give you a little backstory. So basically, Altamira Horsemanship started out as a blog, and it's kind of snowballed a little bit into an equestrian marketing business as well. But the premise is that Altamira is the location of the caves in Spain where they found the first paintings of horses. And so, yeah. And so the Altamira caves in Spain is where the cavemen painted the earliest rendition of horses that we have. And so the reason why I named my blog Altamira Horsemanship is because with my blog and with everything that I write about and want to, put forward into the equestrian world is basically, I want to get to the root of what is the very foundation of our connection with horses, what's been true and what's been timeless. And so essentially what I want to do is just kind of bring forth material that kind of helps equestrian men and women to connect with their horses in a truer way, in a more simple way, and in a way that kind of can relate to all of the different disciplines. And the reason why I started it is because I do like to write, and I've been around horses since I was about 5, and I kind of started, growing up in the show circuit. So, I took a few lessons when I was a kid, and, just Western riding, but then I started the show circuit, and I learned on a lot of different horses, which taught me so much. And I'm so grateful for being able to have learned on so many different, equine personalities.
Yes.
But at the same time, the methods that I was learning was really harsh. It was very much like, make your horse do this and don't let him get away with that. And, I loved horses, but not being taught anything else, I thought that I wasn't strong enough to control this horse. And so it was very much a control game and not a partnership game. And it didn't really become a partnership game until my mid-teens, when I kind of just happened upon a new trainer. My current jumping trainer was sort of transitioning out of that stable, and she was handing me off like every other week to this other trainer named Abby. And Abby, she was so strange. I thought she was so strange at first because we weren't getting into it, right? We weren't like jumping, and we weren't cantering, and we weren't doing this amount of trotting and these moves and that moves. It was a lot of walking and a lot of sitting and a lot of her pointing out to me where my seat bones were positioned wrong and how my position was affecting the horse. And I was like, whoa,
yeah,
what's the deal with this woman, and what's the deal with what she's teaching me? But, in a really short amount of time, I just started soaking up all of the knowledge that she had to share. And so basically the disorientation was just because she was doing all of the writing foundations over again, but from the perspective of having the horse's best interest in mind. And
yes, that's awesome.
yeah, absolutely. It was totally eye-opening. And the thing was, it was almost like the missing piece of the puzzle with riding, because, we grow up horse crazy, right?
Yep.
And then we're taught a lot of different things about horses, how we're supposed to ride, and all of the technicalities of horseback riding. But if we don't learn that piece of partnership, it's almost like there's a disconnect between our passion and our deep love for these animals, and what it is to ride them and to partner with them and to be around them, like, to our fullest capacity. If we don't have the aspect of putting their needs first, if that makes sense.
That makes perfect sense to me. I mean, we were all brought up to, you're the boss. Don't you show him who's the boss. And even the term breaking a horse to this day, still, yes, I shudder, because it's just a horrible, horrible thought process, let alone what they go through. And fortunately, a lot of people have turned the corner, thank goodness.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of that, you're the boss, not him. And I understand where that came from, probably from they're bigger than you are. That's the only way to control them. But like one of my friends always used to say, today, you got to ride the mind, right? It's you can control 1,000 pounds. It's not happening.
Right. It's not going to happen.
And then let's talk about a conversation. So before we get into the conversation, because that's the fun part, let's talk about what you see as a disconnect. And it goes across all disciplines, across no matter what breed. And it doesn't have to be ugly, but tell me what you think the ramifications are and what you see as kind of the breakdown. Why does it happen?
Yeah, absolutely. Honestly, I think a big factor is just our own fear. I think that both with the people who are learning and with the people who are teaching, I think it's just been so instilled that we need to control. And that's the center of control, is fear, right? Because we're afraid of being out of control. We're afraid of something happening. And rightfully so. We are dealing with 1,000-pound animals. And then we're also teaching other people to deal with 1,000-pound animals. And so we're looking at Band-Aids for a lot of problems. And I think that by having that fear as our foundation, we're just thinking about self-preservation. And so it's about us, it's about us, it's about us. And then same thing with, our agendas. It's all about what we need, what we want, and we will go and we'll make the horse, go to those lengths. And then we wonder why our horses are exploding on us. We wonder why they're having tantrums. We wonder why they're having, major tension issues in their bodies. And we miss a lot of, medical issues. We miss a lot of tension problems and a lot of really, really simple fixes to just anxiety. The horse may be anxious about a new situation. And if we just took 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes to address it as soon as we see it, instead of thinking, oh my gosh, my horse isn't listening to me, what's going to happen? Because we're not only afraid of what our horse is going to do, but also what our friends are going to think and what our trainer is going to think. Mm-hmm. And all that. And what if we don't pass this dressage test, or what if we don't clear our round, or more realistically, what if our horse takes off on the trail? But we're thinking about all of these things that could happen,
right?
All of these opinions that could result, instead of just having a moment with our horse and being like, okay, what are they feeling? What's going on? And just being curious. And, curiosity is a really good antidote to fear.
Yes.
Because we could just be like, okay, what's going on right now? And just not going to that place of, oh, it's really big, and just be like, okay, my horse could be in pain. My horse could be afraid of a new situation. He might not be understanding me. He could be feeling his oats, today and not wanting to listen. Yep, but that's only one of many possibilities. And I think that just the fact that we're kind of wrapped up in all of these different ramifications of fear, then we kind of miss a lot of that one-on-one connection with our horse, because that's almost the last thing that we're thinking about, is what our horse is going through. And not everyone all the time, but I think that when we have those disconnects, I think that's what's going on.
So I want to say hallelujah, because that's like a huge thing, because I teach mindfulness. You're familiar with mindfulness, being present. Yes. And as I always say to everyone, if you're coming to the barn, I love what you said. I got to just say it. Bringing your storm to the barn. That is an awesome, you can see it in my mind visually.
Yeah.
And you're coming, say you had a bad day and you had a lot of traffic, you had a fight with your spouse, your boss got mad at you. You're just having a shit day. I'm just going to say it, right? And you're frustrated, you're angry, your tension's up here. And you're going to go to the barn and you're thinking, a lot of us think, I'm spending a lot of money. I want to have a good ride. This is my Zen place. It really, truly is. But now I want something for that. I want that performance. And you're coming with all this like storm clouds around you. And then you wonder why your horse shuts down or is like, I don't want to be with you right now. Or they get nervous and afraid, because all of that is you're bringing to them and they have to absorb that in in your field. So how can someone be more mindful of how they're even approaching their horse just in the very beginning, before any tack goes on, before they even start grooming? What's the best way to approach the horse and start that conversation?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And it's so true. We come with, all of our emotional baggage. We come with, just like you said, like a storm of the day that we've experienced or what's going on in our life. And I feel like, in that moment when we're just driving to the barn or when we pull up, this is our place of solace, right? But we don't want to bring our chaos to our horse, which is our place of solace, right? Because they're going to absorb it. They're going to absorb it into their bodies. They're going to sense it, in our interactions with him. And it's like you said, like they're going to know when we're not being honest with them too. If we put on a brave face, even it doesn't even come down to just pretending like we're okay. Mm-mm. I think in that moment when we show up to the barn and we know that there's something going on internally, I think we have to just be our own best friend. You know what I mean? 100% checking in with ourselves and, like you said, being mindful, like just taking everything that's going on. And even just, if you're an analytical person, listing all of those things in your mind, even if it's something small, like, I have to take care of this thing. Sometimes I literally just be like, I will just tell myself, okay, I will do this when I get home, and make a little plan and then set it aside, or if it's like, relational conflict, like, that's really hard right now. Yep. And I feel really sad about it. Even just acknowledging those feelings and getting them out in the open, you can feel your body relax. You can feel, yeah. And then you're not accidentally unloading that on your horse or accidentally trying to shield your horse from it, because there's that layer of tension where we're trying to hold back all of the chaos, and our horse is going to interpret it as there's danger because she's trying to protect me from something.
Right. Right.
Or she's placing the burden of danger on me because she wants me to take care of something, but I don't know what that something is.
Right. Yeah, that makes perfect sense, because now they're on alert even more. So now their tension's going up, and here you are thinking you're going to have this perfect ride that's in your head that you've seen a million times, which we know doesn't always happen, right? In fact, more times than not, it doesn't. When it does, it's like an amazing day, like you see angels, but it doesn't happen all the time, right? Because you can come to the barn, you can be 100%, and maybe your horse is not 100%, and vice versa. But I think if you can have that moment where you say and be honest with yourself and say, I have a lot of stuff going on today, emotionally, maybe I'm not where I need to be. And that's when I say, you know what, maybe we're not going to ride today. Maybe I'm just going to give you some grass and we're going to call it a day. Because it's really fair to put all this crap on your horse and then you expect a perfect performance on top of it. It's like, it's a lot. If you think of it from a human's point of view, it's kind of almost like, really? Like, it's kind of crazy.
Yeah. I know. And it's almost like we're perpetuating the same thing that might be happening to us. We feel like we're being dumped on at work and we're doing the exact same thing to our horse, or, something of the like. We're doing the very thing that we wouldn't want done to us, you know, in a human relationship.
Right.
And these horses are subject to us in a sense because, you know, we're caring for them. And so in a lot of ways, you know, we have even more responsibility to protect their vulnerability because they do have so much, you know, less control over their environment.
Right. Right. We can come and go, but they're
Right.
there.
Right.
And they're also experiencing other riders as well around their horses.
Right.
So don't
Yeah.
forget that too. My
That's a
horse
good
is
point.
super sensitive. So he's so sensitive. If you know, took out your crop and hit your horse, just a tap or whatever, he feels it and goes like this. So
Wow.
they see everything, they remember everything. And one thing we were talking about was the incongruency. There was a study done recently that I sent to you, and where they
Yeah.
showed the happy face, and then it would have like something like an angry voice behind it. So it's like you're coming to the barn and you're like, hey, and all this stuff's going on behind you. And they know you're either nervous, maybe it's a fear that you've had an injury, and let's talk about that a little bit, because
Yeah.
I had an injury. I'm sure you've had injuries.
Yeah.
And say you are one of those riders and you're going through a little bit of a tough time right now. How do we talk to them and give them that confidence? Or what happens if we don't have that confidence? How do we approach them if you're still not there yet 100%? What's the best way to go about that?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I feel like we've been saying, is one, just being honest with ourselves. And I think too, once we start getting into riding, you know, we get to that point where we're about to hop on, that's still a moment that we can take to check in with ourselves and check in with our horse. You know, a lot of times, like I've seen friends with a fear of mounting their horse because they've been thrown at the mounting block. So it was just such a huge source of anxiety. I mean, you know, passed out, like just such a huge source of anxiety just to get on the horse. And
Oh, wow.
something that was really healing in that moment was just her saying, you know, it was brilliant. She was at the mounting block about to get on, has her foot in the stirrup, and she said, I'm afraid that as soon as I get on, you're going to kick me off. And it was such a huge moment. Cause like, you know, she had a friend there, you know, I was there, and she was talking to her horse and she was opening up and being vulnerable. And then when she finally got on, she was able to celebrate that. And like you say, maybe that's enough for the day. You get off and you go home.
Yeah.
You know, and that's, you know, you give them cookies, you know, you groom them, you have a great time, bonding. And I think it's, giving ourselves the same grace that we would give our horses, you know, and just, breaking everything down into small steps, you know, everything, all of the mindfulness, break it down into small steps, you know, all of the writing. And then, like you said, you know, if you've experienced an injury, maybe you have those memories that you're dealing with. You're on your horse and then all of a sudden it hits you and you're in the middle of trying to do a maneuver, you know, you're trying to do a figure eight in the arena. And then all of a sudden, oh my gosh, panic. What if I fall off my horse?
Yeah.
And I feel like as you practice that mindfulness, you get a little bit faster at catching it and then releasing it. But I'm interested in what you would do in that circumstance too.
And this is funny that you said that, because my horse he knows how to stand at the mounting block, but I've been lax and now he walks off, and I hate that. So I'll have a day where that's all we'll do is I'm going to get on, get off, get on, get off and that's it. And then you always want to end on a good note. But here's the weird thing. Like my horse, because I'm an equine communicator, he told me the other day, he said, listen, you got to get out of the baby pool. I am 50% of this and I will take care of you. Like you're not giving yourself enough credit.
Yeah.
Together a long time and you got this. So let's just do this thing. And I feel like when I'm honest with him and I tell him I'm a little bit nervous today, he literally is like, like, don't worry about it. And then I relax. They give you those calming signals. And I feel like they do take care of you. If you have that relationship and bond. Now, if you don't have that bond, that's a totally different animal.
Absolutely.
Literally.
Absolutely. It's a night and day difference sometimes.
So what can someone do if they don't have a bond? Let's say they're not intuitive and their horse is doing what they want, but they know that there's something more. They know there's another level. They want that bond. How can they establish that communication with their horse?
Yeah, that's a really good question, because I feel like, especially when you ride lesson horses, say you just ride a different lesson horse every week, and you're just approaching a horse for the first time, you know, how do I establish some sort of level of trust with this horse? And, you know, it's kind of a common joke that, like, you know, within the first 10 minutes of riding a horse, they're going to test you every way that they know how,
Yeah.
you know? And
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
um, and I feel like being really firm, and this is something that I think took me a long time to learn. I think being really firm in your own boundaries, like where you end and they begin, gives them a sense of security that you're not going to expect them to be the leader in your partnership. I think that's number one. You know, when they're trying to rush past you out of their stall, when they're trying to like test your boundaries and try to see what they can get away with,
Hmm.
hold your place. You know, like don't be punishing, right? I don't think punishing
I don't
does
either. But stand your ground though, so they won't walk
stand
all
your
over you.
ground.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I've been reading this week about herd dynamics, and herd dynamics can actually change on a daily basis. Sometimes herd dynamics, like, you know, they're a very fluid thing. So when our horses are going back to test us, they're coming back to see if we're still going to be the leader.
Yeah.
And I think just reminding whether a new horse or whether your own horse, just reminding them that you are the leader is huge in establishing that you're going to take care of them, if that makes sense. They don't have to be in charge in a scary situation.
Right.
I think number one. And I think number two is just taking little moments to be kind and to try to listen, because horses will see when you're responding to the things that they're trying to communicate. So I think the more that you try to be a listener, notice when they're tense, notice when they're letting out a sigh of relief, notice when their head's alert and they're looking back and forth and their ears are all over the place.
Yeah.
The more quickly you respond to those things, the more your horse, or even a brand new horse, will trust you more quickly.
And I think you're right on everything you just said. And I also think sometimes I'm starting to get on think, let me see the world from his point of view, because obviously you're much higher up, but what is he seeing? And we know that they can hear for like up to 3 miles, and we know they're always scanning for predators. So sometimes he's seeing something way before I do, and I'm like, what is he doing? Like looking over there, and then like, you know, 10 minutes later I'm like, oh yeah, there's something over there. So, you know, we're slow and stupid compared to them because they're so much more heightened. So I think always having a safe place seems to work for me. So in other words, if you know you can do your circle, or you can do a figure eight or something fun for them, bring out the cones. Always, when you're learning something new, you always, if they get tense and something happens, you can always come back to where they're safe. You know this, you know, this little test or this area or whatever it is you're going to do. And then you both, enough to you both calm down, and then you try again.
That's a fantastic idea.
Yeah.
That is so cool. Yeah, because then it's a check-in point, being like, okay, this is where we're okay. Now let's try to venture out again, and we can always come back. That's fantastic.
Yeah, because you always want to end on a happy note. But if he's going to get tense and then I get tense, that's not good, right? Two of us tense is not good. So we always come back to that, whatever place that is. That can be super boring, but it's a place where you're both super comfortable. You've done this a million times. So whatever that is for you, is usually a small circle or something, or just doing a little bending, or just break it up a little bit, especially if you're always doing the same things all the time. Let's talk about that a little bit, because I feel like as you grow in your progression with them, when you do the same lessons all the time, they get super bored and they want something different. So how does changing it up, like I love cones because my horse loves cones and it's fun, it's something different. And, you know, it's kind of like putting rails out. It just doesn't have to be hard. It's just for their mind, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, horses benefit from stimulation just as much as our brains do. And I think that having something new to work on together is a great way to bond. Yeah. Like you're saying, because they get bored, and, you know, it's good to have that safety zone for sure. But having something that you can work on together will definitely strengthen your relationship. And I had a horse for a while. His name was Chip. And he didn't bond kind of in the traditional way that horses bond. He wasn't really a big touchy-feely horse, but he loved to be challenged. He
Ooh.
loved it. Yeah. It's like he needed that engagement to feel like you were on track with him. And so if he got bored, he kind of started wiggling around and he wanted a challenge. And then as soon as I gave him something that he didn't expect, it was like, yes, like we are on point. And so he was listening, like he was 100% all ears. And I feel like challenges, I mean, for the more timid horse, or for, he was more of a confident horse, I think it kind of helps you guys stretch and grow together. Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's good for them, their mind too.
Mine's the same way, because if he's doing the same thing, he's bored, right? He wants to just out of the baby pool, let's go do something. Even if he's struggling and it's something new for both of us, trying the Spanish walk, we're trying to get that down. Although now he's so smart. This horse is so smart. Like I teach him one time and he gets it, and it's but it's fun for both of us, right? And you can do it from the ground. And I feel like a lot of groundwork really helps, because my horse always tests me with just doing some groundwork, and that's a real place of establishing just that trust, not really dominion over them, but you're learning how to hold your ground too, without being mean, but like, no, we are going to do this. If you need a break, let's take a break. We'll come back to it, but we need to kind of push through this. What are your thoughts on groundwork?
Groundwork's fantastic. Yeah, I think that groundwork's a really great indicator of what goes on in the arena. And it's a good litmus test too of how the rest of the ride's going to go, because if something's off in groundwork, it's either that they're, like you said, bored and they need a little bit of a challenge, or they're just renegotiating your partnership, just making sure that you're still there. You're not just going to flop over,
Yep.
And
like, are you ready? Here I come.
Right. Yeah. Like, are we going to do this or what? And then, but it's also a really great place to see if they're in pain, to see if they're tense that day. And I think that touch without the added weight of tack and, carrying your rider weight, but being able to engage with touch is huge, because they can, like you said, they can feel exactly the emotions that we're putting out. And so I really think that, like just when, human to human, you can tell when someone's hugging you because they need you versus when someone's hugging when they're giving something to you. It feels totally different.
Right.
Neither necessarily bad, but at the same time, horses can feel that too. So I feel like if you're touching them in a way that's communicating that you're there to be with them and you're there to bond with them, I think that goes, light years towards how your actual ride will go.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. And even just having that consciousness and that conversation, we're going to have a conversation today, and giving them the same grace. I love that you said that, because it's like if you came to me and we were going to go out and you said, I'm not feeling well, I have a migraine or something, I'd be like, listen, go home. It's cool. So shouldn't we extend that same type of grace to them if they're in pain, or if they're having an off day, because they're just like people, as and they have days where they're like, maybe they just aren't comfortable, and it's nice to just be able to say, it doesn't have to be a work day every day. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. Make it fun, make it playtime, but give them that grace to say, you know what, maybe take a day off today. Like, just go hang. I love to just let them graze and hang with them, because you're still bonding. There's still a conversation going on.
Absolutely. And it almost, to me, when you're allowing your horse to just be, I feel like it communicates to them that you're not always there asking for something. You're there to give too. And just because you're showing up doesn't mean that you need something. You need. And I think too, something that is really crucial in training that I think is often overlooked is that rest is such a huge training tool. When I was a couple years ago, when I was living at a stable, out here in Western Washington, there was a lady there named Kathy, and she was an Arabian breeder. And, Arabs, they are so So sensitive.
I love Arabs. Yep. Yep.
I know they're so affectionate. They're so sensitive. And so she was phenomenal. And so she used to tell me, if you just did 10 minutes of work, but you accomplished the thing that's taken months to accomplish, just put them away.
Yeah.
Because then what it does is that it's this instant, not necessarily instant gratification, but it's such a huge shift that the horses remember exactly what got them to that point of rest. Because, a lot of horses, when in the wild, they're just trying to get away from pressure, right?
Right.
It's pressure, 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 pressure. They're running from this or they're moving towards that. And so when they're at peace, that's all they really want,
Right.
like at the end of the day. And so to accomplish something and then be like, yes, this is all I've been waiting for. And then just hop off, rub them down, give them some cookies, put them away, let them out to pasture. They'll remember that.
Yeah.
Because their memories are so great.
Yep.
So rest is such a great training tool.
Yeah. You can't, I used to know somebody that rode every single day. She'd ride if it was -10 with 8 feet of snow. She'd ride if it was 100 degrees. And I'm like, no, I wear a vest. So here you are, say 85, 90 degrees, and you've got a helmet and gloves, boots.
Thanks.
Literally one time I almost fell off because I was like dehydrated, and it's like,
wow.
you gotta think of them too, right? They're working in that type of heat as well. It's not just you out there. So keep it short, make it fun. But as you said, I think it's important that when you accomplish something, you end on a good note, make it, and they'll remember, what they needed to do to get there, and that they have that release, because it's kind of a release for them. Like, okay, we're done. It's okay. We don't have to go sometimes people are under the thought process of, it has to be an hour or whatever that time frame is in your mind. For me, I was taught it takes as long as it takes. So if you're trying something new, let's go back to the mounting block. If we did it perfectly once or twice, and then we did something else for fun, I could call it a day right then and there. I don't even ride a long time. I can go out there for like 20 minutes and I'm good. Like, it doesn't have to be this gargantuan epic ride. Or what you could do? You could just say, let's get out of the ring. Let's go for a little walk around, whatever. That's fun. That's different, unless you do it all the time, but just something that's a little bit more stimulating, like you said.
Right. And even like a change of scenery is kind of like it's almost like a double blessing, because it's rest from what they were working on.
Yep.
But it's also something new. So it's still stimulating, and it's something new you can do together. So it's almost like getting the best of both worlds in that.
Yeah. Yeah. Now let's take it a step farther, and let's just say that you did something and you're done. You're going to go do something new and different, but then your horse is sensitive and they get like, okay, now what? Now we've gone up to this next level.
Yes.
What do you do then? All I can think of is we got to go back to that safe place, or we have to do baby steps. What do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the safe place is a brilliant idea when that happens. And I feel like it doesn't even have to be the same thing you were working on together that day.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be like, because this is where it's kind of nuanced, because it doesn't have to be like, oh, like, let's coddle them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
What I've found has actually been really helpful is, like, for example, Chip was really, he would not like to leave the barn property. He could ride anywhere on the barn property, but if he was leaving by himself, he panicked, right?
Yeah.
And so one time I took him too far, because I was like, I know he could do this, right? And me. Yeah. I'm like, I totally know he could do this. And this was something that I pushed my agenda a little too far, because I thought that he could do it. And he was like, no, I can't. And so, but at the same time, he had gotten so far without panicking, right?
Yeah.
So I didn't want to just run all the way back and say, oh yeah, you can't do this. You're right. What I mean?
Right.
So what I did was, like in a situation like that, I could just go back and forth across the barn. So where we're not going home because he got afraid, but at the same time, we're getting comfortable in a smaller version.
Yeah.
And then do the reward.
Like, look how far you've come. Exactly. Right. And then and then you'll use that as your point. I would use that as my point, right? And then push a little farther the next time, but then can go back to that point in a safe place. And I'm a big fan, believe it or not, and I do baby steps, but I'm happy to walk first if my horse will get nervous if we're doing something new. And there's a lot of places to walk around the property, which we really haven't done yet. So I'm going to take him in hand and just walk him around and make sure that he knows it's okay. And like, you're establishing that boundary, even though, but the boundary's growing. So it's still okay. It's just, it's safe. And then you can get on there like, oh, I've been here before. I know what, I got this. So it's not just like, holy shit, you know, because sometimes horses are good with it and they don't care. Some are not. If your horse travels all the time, you show a lot, it's probably no brainer. But if you're not, like, I don't really show that much at all, he can get a little nervous getting farther and farther from his friends, God forbid. So, do you know what I mean? They get a little like sour. So she's a different point of comfort level for them.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And like you said, it's like we could be pushing the boundaries just the same amount every time, but in the process, all of a sudden they have a huge space of comfort zone, whereas they started with this much, but we've been expanding it a little bit. I actually I interviewed a friend of mine, Karen. She had a rescue horse, and this horse went through horrendous things. Like, he had been in such a horrible trailer accident because someone had tied him up too tight, and like the majority of his face got peeled off, and you know, his nose got shattered, and it was horrible. And then he was mistreated before and after that, and you know, and he was also not socialized. And so he wasn't a super social horse. I think he had run in a herd of stallions, but that was about it. And so, you know, not super socialized with people. He'd run in a herd of stallions, not kind of like a mixed herd, you know, where he got to know different personality types. And so he was kind of a rougher horse. And so when they tried working with him, the intent was to break him, to break his spirit. And they did break his spirit, you know? And so Karen got him after his spirit was broken, after his face had been broken. He had gone through like medical rehab, and he had gone to a rescue ranch that did wonders for him, you know, because he got to be socialized with a lot of different people. But the ranch said basically, you know, he needs one person to just love on him. And she did, and she loved on him for the rest of his life. And what she said that she did that was really effective is that she would go out with kind of a plan, because he had so many different things that he was afraid of. And she just was like, well, we'll work on them one by one. And, but some days he would tell her, no, we're definitely not working on this. But he would allow her to work with him on like walking through a puddle of water, which he was completely afraid of, you know, a month ago. And so she kind of let him tell her, you know, what he was ready to handle. And so she just kind of followed that path with him. And soon enough, he was a really, really good horse, and he conquered a lot of fears.
And there you go. If you have that bond and there's trust there, then they'll tell you what they're comfortable at. And I think a lot of people, they just have to look and have that moment and clarity of, is my horse really afraid, or is he acting up? Because there are both sides of the coin. My horse never pretends. He if he's genuinely afraid, he's genuinely afraid. So I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt. And you have a plan, you have a plan, you have a plan, you have a backup plan, another backup plan. So even if you're on the ground, which, as you said, is a great indicator, which it totally is, because sometimes he's a little excited and sometimes he's a little slow, and I'm like, yes, you know. But yeah, I think that's important if you have that bond to begin with, which is where all that communication stems from. So having that conversation of, instead of, you know, it's all about me and my agenda, this is what we're doing today, it's more like, how are you feeling today? And let's see how he acts. And, you know, I think I'd like to do this, but if not, we can do something different. Right?
Absolutely.
You know, how do you, we always talk about horses healing people. What's been your experience with horses healing you and changing and impacting your life?
Yeah, that's a great question. Well, I think like a lot of us, you know, we've had a horse that's seen us at our most vulnerable moment. And I had mine, his name was Shadow. And to this day, he's still my favorite horse that ever walked the earth. And I mean, he was just a little bay Arab quarter horse mix. And he happened to be the first horse that I ever rode. So my grandparents lived in Northern California. I lived in San Diego, Southern California. And my mom, when I was about 5, she had me go take lessons when we visited our grandparents. So I maybe rode him like 8 times, you know, throughout when I was between ages 5 and 6. But oh my gosh, he was the reason why I fell in love with horseback riding, right? Just little putzing around the arena and stuff. And then, you know, I went and I showed, and I did a lot of stuff in Southern California, doing the show jumping circuit, kind of went away from Western pleasure riding. And then, you know, right around the time where I was learning a lot from Abby, that trainer who was kind of reteaching me about horsemanship, my dad passed away. It was super, super fast. I was 14. He got diagnosed with brain cancer, and then he died 3 months later like to the day. It was very fast. And I'm one of those types of people who feels things so huge, but I don't want to be vulnerable about it. And so I was like, nope, I'm just not going to feel this. This is too big. I can just live in my mind. You know, like it was very much a consistent, concerted effort to just not feel. It's like I just shut down. But the thing is that when you try not to feel things, those feelings become something else because they have to do something. And so by not dealing with the grief of my dad passing away, I went into this terrible depression. Like I got super, super depressed. My mom got really worried about me because it was like I was just not really caring about life. I wasn't being careful when I was driving. You know, I got into like 2 accidents, and it was nuts. Like I was not caring as much about schoolwork, or I let go of a lot of things that I love to do. And then finally I started approaching being able to heal, and I thought, okay, I finally caved, and I was like, okay, I'll go see a therapist. I'll try opening up like all of this grief or whatever. And it was heart-wrenching, but it was at the same time, it was just like, I didn't really care whether I felt happy or sad. I was just kind of content being numb. And I didn't think I was going to be excited about anything ever again. And then one summer, when I first started walking through grief counseling, I got a phone call when we were going up to see my grandparents in Northern California, and we got a phone call that my grandparents' next door neighbors had bought a new horse, and his name was Shadow. And he was that same horse that I rode when I was 5 years old.
Wow.
Yeah. And the neighbors were like, yeah, do you want to come ride him? And, you know, we have another horse. Well, and then so my grandparents' next door neighbors had a teenage daughter the same age as me. She was like, yeah, we'll go riding. And she was adventurous, and she loved running through the hills. And we just walked down through the forest. They live near Yosemite National Forest. And so we just get to the main trailhead that heads up a hill. And it was like the moment Shadow started opening up on the trail, I was like, I felt something again.
Yeah.
I felt an excitement. I felt like, okay, I want to live, you know, like I want to be happy again. And it was just such a turning point for me in my journey, because like, it had to have been God, you know, I mean, like, how do you, like,
you can't even, no, that's just,
yeah,
there's a million horses in the world. I mean, and that one right then and there at that time, I mean, there's no other way that could have been anything else.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so, I mean, it just, you know, I don't know if horses realize how much they impact our lives, but I'm so grateful that we have animals that can both carry us and that we can carry them at the same time, because that symbiotic relationship, that kind of like interreliance is something that, you know, I've never seen with any other animal. And it just, I mean, I'm so grateful for, you know, having horses, because, you know, at the end of the day, you know, no matter what discipline you do and no matter how well you're riding, it all comes down to that connection.
Yeah.
You know? And still, like, I mean, in my later adult life, you know, every time that I've had a really hard season, I've had a horse to walk through it with, you know, because they teach us patience and they teach us how to work through our problems, you know, instead of just bottling everything up, because they're going to reflect all of our emotions back to us.
Right.
And so that's something that, you know, Chip, when my horse, he really taught me when I was going through a rough time, like, you have to do something with this, because he was reflecting all these emotions back to me. So I knew that I was still not dealing with him. So,
Yeah.
and like, the more I was able to let go, the more smooth, like, our time together was,
Right,
too.
right. Well, thank you for sharing that. I completely agree with you because I had a similar experience. So, when I was younger, I was getting into a bad crowd at school, and my father, we moved a few times. And then my father said, he finally gave in and said, I said, if we move this time, like if I have to go somewhere again, like it was 6 places in 6 years due to just the way that things felt, happened. Then, I got to get a horse or something. Like I got to get something. I was just hanging out with bad people at high school, and that saved me because obviously, as at the barn, you're grooming and you're picking up stuff and cleaning and my mother didn't really believe in it because I'm the only rider, but my father and I were very close. And he said, like, either it's this or a therapist. But the horses have always been my therapy because they've been the only ones that accepted me. So that's why it's like amazing to be around them, because they're the master teachers. They accept you, but they correct you just like they do in the herd. But the correction's quick and then it's done. They don't hold it against you. They don't think about it all the time like we do. They just, bang and it's done. And, or, you correct them and it's done. Like they teach us how to be better humans.
They're so forgiving. Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. They teach us how to be better humans.
And that's what we have to learn, is to let things go and forgive. I mean, all the things that have happened to that horse, and he still forgave her and they had a great relationship. All the rescues that I've had, same type of thing, they just forgive and this, move forward, which is like amazing, because a lot of humans can't forgive something stupid like being cut off in traffic. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, right.
You have to take it as a lesson,
Yeah, 5 people we're angry with on the way home from work.
Yeah, right. We talked a little bit offline about how equestrians can support each other, and I know I know we're getting like low on time, and I'd love to have you back for we can have a whole conversation about that, because my experience has been that equestrians do the stiff upper lip, and hopefully you're getting better, and it's if you've had an injury or fallen off or something like that, and it's always genuine, but there's a lot more that we could do. Just quickly, in a nutshell, how do you think we could support each other better, no matter what discipline we ride, no matter what breed horse we have? How could we be better humans toward each other around our horses and at the barn?
Yeah, absolutely. I think this is huge because, barn culture can be super, super supportive, or it could be super toxic, just because we're seeing each other at our best and our worst.
At our worst. Yes, we all have days. Let's be real. We all have days.
We all have days.
Yeah, we do.
We all have this, this common love of horses, but I feel like there's such an expectation of knowing everything about horses because you have a horse. And I feel like what we can do to support each other is, one, be real about what we're going through. Just admit, you have like stuff that you're going through with your horse, or with your riding. Like, if you have like a weakness or a vulnerability, I feel like just being able to be open about it and just be lighthearted about it does wonders. As
100%. 100%.
Yeah. And then I think the other thing too is that being able to be helpful when asked, and non-judgmental, of course, but just being that person that's there for other people at the barn, but not in a way like condescending.
Yeah.
That's the word I'm looking for.
Yeah.
Because I think we do that when we feel insecure. I've done it. I've been like on the receiving end of it, and sometimes it happens like without us even thinking. But I think just going with the intention of just being supportive and just like having everyone's horse's best interest at heart, and just being that considerate barn person. But definitely, I think the biggest part, is just being able to just be real about where you're at with your journey, and I think it opens up the floor for other people to just feel comfortable about where they're at with their journey.
I think everybody is going through something at one time or another. There's not a rider out there, pro or amateur, that has not gone through a moment where they've been afraid, nervous, uncomfortable. I mean, it happens to we're all humans, and these are big animals, and they are quick, and they turn quickly, and things happen. And I think if you could just say, one, like you said, be real about it. Like I'm having a little bit of a struggle in this area. Like people would always ask me, hey, let's go for just, a cool out walk or something. And I'd be like, oh no, I have to go. I have a lot to do or whatever. The truth is I was really afraid because I wasn't comfortable, because I was afraid I was going to get hurt again. And I was embarrassed. I was ashamed. And that is ridiculous. That's so stupid. Like when you think about that, it's like, I don't know why we're trying to pretend everything's perfect, but it's not. And I think if you just said, maybe I'm a little nervous for whatever reason, then they can maybe say, if you could just, how can I support you?
Yeah.
Just those words would go a long way, in my opinion. Just like, how can I support you? Because that's how we can help each other. And it's up to you to say, I'm okay today. Like it's good, but thanks for offering. But I just feel like there's a lot more that we can do to help each other get through some of the rough patches that we've had, because we've all had them, and we're all humans, and we have bad days where we're just like, I mean, I've had days where I have gotten all geared up, and I've literally just, if there were like 5 people in the indoor, I'm like, forget it. I'm not doing it. Cause I don't ride with a lot of people because I have a big horse and I'm not comfortable. So honestly, I'll just, and he looks at me like, oh, really? Like we're all ready to go, but if it's, 10 feet of snow outside and there's nowhere else to go and everybody's in the indoor fighting for this much space, I'm like, I'm just going to wait till a better time. I'm not doing it. But I think if we could just support each other, I think it'd be helpful. I think it'd be a nice place to start.
Yeah, absolutely.
Tell us about your book, because I know you're writing a book and I'd love to know more about it.
Yes, absolutely. So my book is just kind of an extension of my blog. So basically it's called Basics of Building Trust with a Horse. And it's just like it sounds.
Cool.
So we walk through 3 sections. So one is, how does your horse communicate both to other horses, and how does your horse communicate to you? Because there are certain things that horses just mostly do with humans. And then there are things that are universal between horses, and then how they communicate with humans too. And then the next section is, how do you bond with your horse? So we talk about boundaries, about partnership, about doing things just to bond, not to have an agenda. And then, how to pick up on fear and how to pick up on pain and that sort of thing. And then the third section is to how to train and ride your horse, knowing all of those things. And,
awesome.
The book is kind of like, I feel like there's a lot of good books out there about training. So why add mine? Right. But
yeah.
I feel like there's, I want to come from the place of what we talked about, of knowing what it feels like to not know what's going on, or not feel like I'm the best rider, because I've never been the best rider. I've never been great at understanding horses, but just coming from a learner's perspective, someone who might not be able to afford, a fancy trainer, or, be able to do lessons consistently. Like, what can we do just to improve our bond with our horse so that our riding and our training kind of springboards from there.
Yeah, I love that. I love that, because I'm the same way. It's like, I've never been the best rider. I'm not the worst and I'm not the best. I'm probably somewhere in the middle, but we can always learn more. And if you might be in a position where you don't have access to a top trainer, or your trainer's maybe not the right fit for you there, and so the communication's breaking down, there's a lot to that too. So I think that this is perfect for everyone, because these are the building blocks. And I completely agree with you. It's not about, there's a lot of trainers out there. We're not competing with trainers. Right. And I'm not bashing trainers either, because they do really great things. Yes. That I could never do, getting on these 2-year-olds and training them and giving them all that experience. Yeah. But there are things that you can teach others from your experience as to how to bond, maybe getting through some of that fear. And I love the boundaries. I mean, we could talk about boundaries too next time, because that's a huge, huge thing, especially if you've been a nice person like me and taught to people please.
Yes.
That's a big deal.
Oh gosh, we could talk a whole hour about how horses taught me how to not be a people pleaser.
And we need to do that because I came from that culture of being the nice girl and always wanted to people please. And I always people pleased until just a few years ago when I was like, listen, this is not working for me. And it doesn't mean you have to be mean. I am the nicest person on the earth, and I'm completely against anybody hitting their horse. I'm fine with correction, but there's a difference between abuse and all that. But boundaries with horses are huge.
Huge.
And I'll give you examples, and I'm sure you'll give me examples, but there are things that we can do to, as we said, you just make that little correction. They're like, oh, okay, she's serious today. I can literally hear that. Like, she means it today. I'm like, yeah, I mean it today. I mean, but otherwise they walk all over you. They're 1,000 pounds. I mean, they literally can just, my horse used to walk all over me until I was like, what am I doing wrong? My friend's like, you need to teach him that he can't do that anymore. It's not cool. Yeah. Just like if you have a baby and they whine all day and you just let them do it. It's like, you don't want a big baby that's 1,000 pounds that thinks that everything that they do is okay, because they can hurt you and hurt other people. And then it can escalate into the biting, and it's not cool.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that if more people practice boundaries with their horses, there would be less abuse, because their horses would be less confused about what they're supposed to do and what they're not supposed to do. Yep. And then people won't because, we all do this, especially with people pleasers. We'll bear it, and then we'll snap, right? Right. I feel like that's what happens a lot with abuse too. Right. So if we can just learn how to exercise those healthy boundaries, the horses don't get confused. We don't get as frustrated, and then we can kind of just create that healthy.
Yes. Because actually when you snap, it's so much worse, because a lot of times when you snap, it can be the smallest thing. And then they're like, where is this coming from? Like, what is going on right now? You know what I mean? So yeah, we could talk about boundaries, and we should, because I've never been anywhere where anybody talked about boundaries unless I literally was raising my hand going, I need help. And I did that, and my friends helped me, but that's a big deal. And horses in the wild, they establish your boundaries all the time, multiple times a day. Like, it's not cool that you're biting me. It's not cool that you're baring your teeth to me. I'm not having it today. And, this is my butt, or I'm walking away, or whatever the case may be. So why shouldn't we talk their language?
Exactly. Especially if it's meeting them on their level, for one. And then two, it's something that they can understand.
They understand clearly. Yeah.
And I've been, researching these herd dynamics, and with the herd dynamics, all horses want is to be at peace. And something that one researcher was saying is that the more clear who the herd structure is, or hierarchy, more at peace the herd is. If there's constant question of okay, who's the leader now? Who's the leader now? Well, this is how it was yesterday. This is how it is now. The herd's going to be in a little more chaos than if there's a really well-established order.
Same thing with humans. Yeah. Same thing with humans. Who's going to be the leader today? Right. And you want that respect. That's another thing you talk about, respect in the what if your horse doesn't respect you? There's so many things to talk about.
Yes, I know. It's just like a huge, it's like this one topic that we kind of overlook, but it's like, it has such far-reaching implications with everything else.
It does. And here you are expecting your best ride ever, right? Like, if the more I say that, the stupider it sounds to me. Like, really?
But it's true. We all think that way.
We all think that way. And we want that great ride, and we want to be that 50%. I want to be that 50% partner. I want to hold up my end of the deal. And my end of the deal is to be kind to you and give you boundaries, and you'll take care of me and I'll take care of you. And nobody's going to let each other down. And that diminishes the expectations. Both of you have the right expectation. We know where each other is, and everybody will be happier. And it's not that the horse is a bad horse anymore, because I think the breakdowns, the horse takes the brunt of that a lot of times, and that's not fair. Right. The human doesn't get it. And yeah, so.
Exactly. And then misunderstandings ensue.
Not good. Not good. Well, I think at least we've solved one world problem today. What do you think?
Yeah. I'd call that good.
Yeah. Well, I can't thank you enough for coming on, Lindsey. Where can people find you so that they can reach out to you, get your book, and they can find out what you're doing?
Yeah, absolutely. So you can find me at altamirahorsemanship.com. So that's where I have all of my articles, and I have a landing page there for my book if you want to hear news of when it's going to be released, and also pre-release, special discounts.
Okay.
You can sign up for that specific email list there. And then I'm also on Instagram, at Altamira Horsemanship. And I just started a YouTube channel, so I'll be getting a little more active there. But Instagram for sure, definitely my blog. You can also find me on Facebook, post articles and funny horse memes.
Sweet. Yeah. Awesome. When's your book going to be released?
So we're looking at late August. So.
Oh, wow. That's right around the corner.
Yeah, I know.
Wow. Good for you. Good for you. Well, thank you so much for being here. It's been an absolute pleasure to talk to you. I knew it would be, and I'm so thankful and honored that you could be on the show today. So thank you for being here.
Yes. Thank you for having me. It's been great.
Awesome. All right. Thank you, Lindsey. All right, everyone. You guys have a good night, and thank you for being here.